In this video, we're going to show you how to set dates and to configure your quizzes, specifically the classroom quizzes when it comes to the access code. So let's switch over to the quizzes button. And once it loads, we'll select any of the quizzes. Now again, we're looking specifically at the classroom quizzes, not the within the module quizzes or within the module tests. We don't need to set dates for those. In fact, we've encouraged the students to work ahead whenever possible. So if you want to set a due date, you'd be able to do that using the process we're about to show you, but don't select a turn-on date, so to speak. Now, Module 1 already does have a turn-on date and a turn-off date, but it was configured just sort of at random rather than specifically for your class. So what you want to do is go into the Module 1 classroom quiz and click the Edit button. Always going over to this little gear icon to find the Edit button. Okay, so we don't need to be into the questions at all. We're going to look instead at the sort of the setup of the quiz. That's a graded quiz and all these other things. I want you to please leave all of these alone. Don't change these unless you feel that there's been some sort of error, and then email the AF coordinators if you feel that there's been some sort of error. Now what we're going to do is scroll down here to the very bottom, just before the Save button, is a due date and an available from date. So you would configure that to match your own class. So if you're teaching Tuesday, Thursday classes, this one is, you would want it to be due at Thursday because that's when our class is. And they're taking this, if you remember, this is the first module they take between the first day of class and then the second day of class. So during the second day of class, they're going to be taking this classroom quiz, and this is my time, and it's going to be due at, say, 2 p.m. Now, you would want to make this whatever your class actually is. So if your class is 11 to 12:15, you would make it due at 12:15, or even at 12 if you wanted to, or 12:20. You choose a number that makes sense for your class. I would not choose a number that is outside of your classroom hours, though. You don't want people taking this once they get back home. Okay, so that's when it's due. Now, when it's due means that if someone were to take it outside of that time, it would be marked as late in the gradebook, but they'd still be allowed to take it. These fields down below, available from and until, is their ability to actually even see the quiz, to start the quiz. So there's a time you can turn it on and a time you can turn it off, of course. So here's how you turn it on. You just click on the calendar button. You would select the date, and then you would select the time to turn it on. So I'll say 11 o'clock a.m. instead of p.m. is when it's going to turn on, and say done, and then it's going to turn off at the same day at 12:15 p.m. I'm just typing those things in manually. Now, if you know for sure that you want to give the quiz only in the first 10 minutes of class, let's say, you would turn it on from 11 to 11:15 or something like that. That's really up to you, how much flexibility you want to give yourself. Of course, the more open that window is, the more possible it is that someone could take it from at home or at a different time. But I do think it's a little bit risky to set the time just exactly at 10 minutes unless you're doing it on the spot that morning. That would also be an option for you. Okay, so we would click the Save button when we're done with that, although while we're here, I'm going to show you one more thing. Let's scroll up a little bit. The classroom quizzes are the only kinds of quizzes that have a restriction built into them that requires an access code. And so we've pre-written an access code, a word that hopefully people know how to spell, although maybe we shouldn't take that for granted, that they're going to have to type in when they go to take the quiz. So the idea here is that if they're at home, let's say skipping the class or at the beach or something, and let's say they guess correctly when the quiz is turned on, they still don't know what this access code is because they're not in the room watching you write it on the whiteboard. So we do suggest you write it on the whiteboard and then have the students using their own devices type that in, and then they're able to take the quiz. Okay, so that's available here for you to look up in the edit field. Do click Save when you're done, and now you've got a time assigned to your class. If you have any questions with this process, go ahead and send a note over to the Academic Foundations coordinators, and we'll get your question answered. And lastly, keep in mind that what we're dealing with here are just the classroom quizzes. You'll need to do this for Module 2 classroom quiz, Module 3 classroom quiz, etc. And I would probably just set it to be the time of your class and the date of your class each time. So you can want a little sheet next to you so you know when each of these things occur, when the date is for the Module 3 classroom quiz, for instance. And you can do it for those other things like test and quiz and so forth. If you want to set a due date without setting open and close dates, that's fine too. That might be easier, actually.